Why you procrastinate even when you know what to do? Freud explains. You know that feeling when you have a deadline tomorrow. You know exactly what you need to do. You have the skills, you have the time, but somehow you end up scrolling through social media for 3 hours instead. Everyone tells you it's laziness. Self-help gurus say you lack discipline. But what if I told you that maybe you're not being lazy at all? Maybe you're actually punishing yourself. Before we dive into this uncomfortable truth, hit that subscribe button if you want to understand your mind, explore what Freud uncovered about why we do what we do. Like, share, and hit the bell, because this is going to challenge everything you think you know about procrastination. The real problem isn't time management. Let's start with a question. If procrastination was really about poor time management or laziness, why do some people procrastinate on things they actually enjoy? Why do artists avoid their art? Why do writers stare at blank pages? Why do students delay studying subjects they're passionate about? The answer lies in something much deeper than productivity tips or better planners. Freud discovered that our mind has hidden mechanisms that work against us, even when we consciously want to succeed. Think about it this way. Your mind is like a computer with multiple programs running in the background. While your conscious mind is saying, I need to get this done, there's background software running a completely different program, one that's designed to stop you, what Freud called repression. Freud discovered something revolutionary. We push uncomfortable thoughts and feelings into our unconscious mind. He called this repression. It's like having a locked drawer in your mind where you stuff everything you don't want to deal with. But here's the thing about that locked drawer, it doesn't stay locked. The contents keep trying to escape, and when they do, they show up in the strangest ways. One of those ways is procrastination. Let me give you a real example. Sarah is a talented graphic designer who keeps putting off working on her portfolio. She says she's too busy or not in the mood. But when we dig deeper, we find that she's terrified of success. Why? Because success means visibility, and visibility means her controlling mother might finally approve of her, which triggers a whole mess of childhood feelings she's been avoiding. So instead of dealing with these feelings, her mind creates this elaborate avoidance system. It's not laziness. It's psychological self-defense. Think of repression like this. Imagine you have a beach ball you're trying to hold underwater. The more you push it down, the more pressure builds up. Eventually, it's going to pop up somewhere. And when it does, it's going to be explosive and unpredictable. The death drive. Why we sabotage ourselves. Now here's where it gets really dark, and this is why most people don't want to hear this truth. Freud discovered that humans have what he called the death drive, thanatos in Greek mythology. Before you freak out, he's not saying we all want to die. He's saying that part of our psyche is constantly working to return us to a state of non-tension, non-struggle. It's the part of us that wants to avoid challenge, avoid growth, avoid anything that creates psychological tension. The death drive shows up as self-sabotage right before success, choosing the familiar over the beneficial, preferring the comfort of failure to the anxiety of trying, destroying good things in our lives for no apparent reason. Here's a modern example. You know that person who always ruins good relationships right when they're getting serious? That's the death drive in action. It's not that they don't want love. It's that love creates tension, vulnerability, and the possibility of loss. The death drive says, let's just end this now and avoid all that messy uncertainty. Procrastination is often the death drive in a business suit. It looks productive. I'm going to clean my room first. But it's actually your psyche's way of avoiding the life-changing tension that comes with actually completing important tasks. The punishment theory. But here's where it gets even more uncomfortable. Sometimes we procrastinate because we believe we don't deserve success. This is where repression and the death drive team up to create a perfect storm of self-sabotage. Most of us carry around unconscious guilt about something. Maybe it's survivor's guilt. You're doing better than your family and you feel bad about it. Maybe it's imposter syndrome. You believe you're not as smart as people think. Maybe it's something from childhood that convinced you that you're fundamentally flawed. This guilt sits in your unconscious mind like a judge, and every time you're about to succeed, it hands down a verdict. You don't deserve this. You need to be punished. So how does your mind punish you? By making you waste time, by making you miss opportunities, by making you feel frustrated and disappointed in yourself. It's like having an inner saboteur who's always working against you. Here's a pattern you might recognize. You work really hard on something you're about to finish, and then suddenly you find yourself doing anything but the final push. You reorganize your desk, you answer emails, you suddenly remember you need to call your mom. Your mind is literally pulling you away from success. Modern examples of repression and death drive. Let's look at how this plays out in today's world. The perfectionist procrastinator. This person delays starting because they're afraid their work won't be perfect. But underneath that fear is often a repressed belief that they're not good enough. The death drive kicks in and says if we don't start, we can't fail. The overwhelmed overachiever. This person takes on too many projects and then can't finish any of them. They're repressing their need for rest and boundaries. The death drive manifests as burnout and paralysis. The social media scroller. You sit down to work and immediately open Instagram. You're not just distracted. You're avoiding the psychological tension of focus work. The death drive prefers the numbing comfort of endless scrolling. The last-minute panic worker. This person only works under extreme pressure. They're addicted to the adrenaline because it's the only thing strong enough to override their death drive. The panic creates more tension than the work itself. Why traditional productivity advice doesn't work. Now you understand why all those productivity hacks don't work long term. They're trying to fix a psychological problem with organizational solutions. It's like trying to fix a broken heart with a better calendar app. Time blocking. The Pomodoro technique, getting up at 5 a.m., these might work temporarily, but they don't address the unconscious forces that are actually driving your procrastination. Here's what most productivity gurus don't tell you. If your procrastination is driven by repressed guilt, fear, or the death drive, no amount of optimization will fix it. You need to deal with the psychological root cause. Think of it this way. If you have a leak in your roof, you can put buckets all over your house to catch the water, but until you fix the actual hole, you're just managing symptoms. What Freud would actually recommend Dasso, what would Freud suggest? He'd start by asking you to pay attention to what you're avoiding, not just the task, but the feelings around the task. Free association. Next time you're procrastinating, sit quietly and ask yourself, what am I really avoiding here? Then let your mind wander. Don't judge the thoughts that come up, just notice them. You might be surprised what emerges. Dream analysis. Start paying attention to your dreams, especially around times when you're procrastinating. Dreams often reveal the unconscious conflicts that are driving your behavior. Look for patterns. When do you procrastinate most? Is it always before big opportunities? After you've been praised? When you're happy, the patterns will reveal the unconscious triggers. Question your guilt. Ask yourself, do I believe I deserve success? If the answer isn't an immediate yes, you found your repressed material. Notice your death drive. When do you choose comfort over growth? When do you sabotage yourself? When do you prefer the familiar pain over unknown possibility? The goal isn't to eliminate these forces. They're part of being human. The goal is to recognize them so they don't control you unconsciously. The uncomfortable truth about change. Here's the hardest part. Even when you understand all this, part of you won't want to change. The death drive likes the status quo. Repression feels safer than facing difficult truths. But here's what Freud discovered. Awareness is the first step toward freedom. When you can see these unconscious forces operating, you can start to make conscious choices about them. You might still procrastinate sometimes, but now you'll know why. You'll catch yourself in the act and ask, am I avoiding this task? Or am I avoiding the feelings that come with completing it? That awareness alone changes everything. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. So the next time you find yourself procrastinating, don't just ask, how can I be more productive? Ask, what am I really avoiding here? What feelings am I not ready to face? What success am I not ready to accept? The answer might be uncomfortable, but it will be honest. And honesty, as Freud knew, is the beginning of all real change. What did you think? Does this make sense? Have you noticed these patterns in your own procrastination? Comment below. I read everything, and I'm curious about your experiences with this. And if this helped you understand yourself better, subscribe for more insights into why we do what we do. Because understanding your mind isn't just interesting, it's the key to actually changing your life. What pattern do you repeat and don't understand? Let me know in the comments, and maybe we'll explore it in a future video.